Coming out of the military, they feel strong. They don't think they need mental health help, but a lot of them have seen a lot of things and do have PTSD.
Veterans, after serving our country, are having problems getting housing or can't pay their bills. Aren't they supposed to receive benefits, veterans disability that should help them pay for some of those life necessities?
That's a great question.
Welcome to the Glamorous Grind, where grit meets glamour and justice wears a badge of honor.
Today, we're looking at what happens to our veterans after they serve.
Many of our nation's heroes come home only to face invisible battles with trauma, homelessness, or even incarceration, and a divorce.
Commitment to the military, not to the family. I think that's one of the biggest ones. They want to stay with the military. That's their first love, not their family. And next you know, you find them divorced.
Our guest today has seen those battles up close, both as a veteran and as a champion for those transitioning from combat zones into their new civilian lives.
You had a steady paycheck. Now you don't have that anymore. But somehow you can find drugs, you can find alcohol, and you can find yourself in trouble.
Please welcome Dr. Gerald P. Porter, Senior Executive at USPS. He's a proud member of Veterans of Foreign Wars and an advocate with the North County Veterans Stand Down Association.
Porter, thank you so much for joining us today. It's just such a privilege to have you. I mean, we have such a huge veterans community here in San Diego that I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to have you come on and just kind of talk about some of the issues that veterans face.
Oh, thank you.
And, being in San Diego with a large military community, as a divorce attorney, I see a lot of them going through divorce, having custody issues, and facing other challenges, including mental health challenges that you help them with. How did you get started with the military?
First of all, my father was one of the first pilots. He crashed his plane back in the early 40s. He was at Army Air Corps. Okay, then my uncles and my sister joined Desert Shield, Desert Storm. So I wanted to follow in those steps.
Oh, you served for over 21 years?
Yes, 21 years.
And you said you went to Kuwait. What other places have you been?
Oh, wow. I've been to Guam, Africa, Philippines, Thailand, Korea. Wow. A small island called Honiara. Wow. Black sand, beautiful place. So
Black sand?
Black sand.
Like real black sand?
Real black sand.
Oh,
It was beautiful.
What color is the water?
The blue, green, that color, turquoise.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you do now?
Right now, I'm a senior executive with the United States Postal Service. I handle medium and large companies, anywhere up to $50 million.
And where do you volunteer?
North County Stand Down. Great spot. Master Sergeant Matt Foster sponsored it about maybe 10 years ago. He saw so many people that needed assistance on the street of San Diego and in North County, Oceanside. And he said, you know what, let's get together. So one of the founders of Green Oaks Ranch said, hey, you know what, I have a 134-acre community helping drug and alcohol addicted individuals. How about you bring veterans here and we help them with transitioning into some type of program? Well, that program started with just helping a couple of veterans to now helping over 1,000 veterans. We have doctors that come in to help, veterinarians that come and help. We have pet care. So if an individual has pets, some reason we find out a lot of people homeless have pets. Well, they need care just like their human counterpart. We have people that need legal services. That's one of the biggest things that I found with homeless veterans. Loitering, camping, urinating. Those fines, last year, a judge came and he removed that. He forgave them for that. People don't want to do those things, but they have no other choice. It's not like you're on the street of PB, Pacific Beach, and you have a bathroom right there. It's locked. It's locked at night, So that's what we do. And that's one of the things I love. We try our best to try to find them a place. Even if we can't find them a place, at least we can try to point them in the right direction. Sometimes Father Joe's, temporary community service, or even a hotel for a few days. And that's what we usually do.
Now, why do veterans, after serving our country, aside from mental health issues, are having problems getting housing or can't pay their bills? Aren't they supposed to receive benefits, veterans, disability, other income that should help them pay for some of those life necessities?
Wow, that's a great question. And I'm going to go back now. Now, from birth, I had a mom, dad, and I grew up. They told me what to do, when to do, what time to come in. Then I enlisted in the military. They told me when to get up, when to eat, when to go to the bathroom. So I was always in this bubble. We call it institutionalized. It's almost even equivalent to being in prison. Someone is always telling you what to do. So you didn't have any responsibilities like paying bills or be responsible for, making sure this is done. So when you transition out, it's hard. No one really tells you how to pay a bill. No one really tells you how you're responsible for this. You're responsible to get up to find a job. You're responsible to understand that this coworker wants you to do this job. And then here you're trying to figure out, how do you navigate that? Some people get out in San Diego, don't understand when they were in Arkansas, the rent is not $1,500 a month for a house. It's a lot more. And they end up finding themselves sleeping with a friend or a person's house. And then next you know, they're at home, into a car, into a camper. And all of a sudden now they're in front of the police.
What about drugs? Is that part of it a lot often or no?
I think what happens is just not drugs. It's the environment they're in. You had a steady paycheck. Now you don't have that anymore. But somehow you can find drugs, you can find alcohol, and you can find yourself in trouble.
I always say this, that like in Russia, veterans are treated like royalty.
Yes, they
veterans
wear medals,
and teachers, yeah.
Even when they already retired and they're not in the military. Like my grandfather had tons of medals he used to wear, and they were highly honored.
Yeah, we're still honored. We're still honored. It's just the transitional period. If we knew about programs, so we had people to help us with programs, a 38-year-old man who's been living in military housing that's always been taken care of by the military, if you show him or her how to navigate life, that individual may not find themselves divorced in your court or in your hearing. You may find that individual will be able to navigate life. I got out in Guam, okay? So I didn't know anything about here. I applied to over 100 different jobs. I took pre-tests. And still when I got here, I was homeless for 9 days. 9 days. I'm trying to figure this out. And I was going through a divorce. So I had 3 kids living in a house that I could barely pay the mortgage because I had saved up some money, but didn't have a job. So I had to take whatever it came to me. That was a little security job that I had. Even though I had a master's degree, I was getting finished, about to start on my doctorate, but I couldn't do anything because I didn't know how to interact with individuals. I didn't know how to do an interview. No one taught me how to interview. I got in front of a sergeant or a commander, and I responded, yes, sir, yes, ma'am.
Why don't they teach that in military before they let you out?
They try to do that with a class, this transitional assistant program, but you're doing your job also. So they say, take off for a couple of days, and here's a pamphlet. They don't do any like dry runs of interviewing. They say, here what you should do. These are the programs. Here's GI jobs and so forth. That's why if you see most veterans, you'll probably see here in California, especially in San Diego, government workers, because that camaraderie, or law enforcement, camaraderie. You don't see too many veterans out there saying, I'm a be an attorney. I'm going to be doing something else, because we don't know how to fit. And I think that's what you're saying. Why don't we teach people how to fit in society? And I think we're trying to get better, but it's really hard, especially when you're in a remote spot.
Seems like maybe teaching people about how to transition from military world into real world when you now have responsibilities like paying rent, utilities, and other things you haven't done before. Maybe it's too late at that point. That should be taught in school, at elementary school level. Like children should understand how money works, what saving money is, what investing money is, and how the world really works. It should be part of our general education, I think.
I agree that those should be taught in school, but I think that a lot of it is practical, right? You have to kind of learn through living. And unfortunately, because they are institutionalized, people in the military, they come out, and even if they had learned those skills in school, I think the transition would be difficult, especially considering, people coming out of the military and serving, they have a huge level of mental health issues. And I think a big problem that we haven't really touched on yet is the fact that they either don't have sufficient support to push that treatment, because a lot of people come out of the military, and let's be real, like men coming out of the military, they feel strong. They don't think they need mental health help, but a lot of them have seen a lot of things and do have PTSD or depression or anxiety, and also just not knowing how to handle that transition, adds on to that. I mean, what I've seen, and, I know Porter because he helps me a lot whenever I have clients who come to me, and this happens often in the employment field, where veterans come back and they try to get a normal job. And unfortunately, they've never had a normal job. They've always been institutionalized, and they try to work this 8 to 5, and they have attitudes sometimes, or they are triggered by something or another thing. And maybe it's because of a disability that they have, like PTSD. Mm-hmm. But the employer doesn't know that they have PTSD, and probably the veterans themselves don't know that they have PTSD. Correct. They think that's just their attitude. They're just aggressive. And so the employer doesn't know, and the veteran doesn't tell them, so the employer has no duty to accommodate as they would any other disability in another case, right? Yeah. So the employer's like, you have an attitude, doesn't work, not a good fit, you're fired. They come to me, I'm like, oh, this is because of your PTSD, but the employer didn't know. They had no reason to know. They had nothing that they should have done differently. So I send them to Porter, and Porter usually helps them through one of these organizations that you're part of, which are great organizations, because technically they don't have any wrongful termination case, but they need help. And they need help first and foremost with their mental health issues, because until they can overcome that and understand why their brain is reacting the way it's reacting, they have no chance of succeeding in any vocation.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I was in court this week picking up a family member who suffered from TBI, traumatic brain injury. It's a very close family member who didn't know she had traumatic. She knew she had a traumatic brain injury, but she really thought she could cope with society, but she couldn't. She ran away from the place. She thought she believes that people are around her. She done 2 tours of combat in Afghanistan. They killed several of her friends, and she's always had that. And so she had a lot going on with her, and we did what we could to help her. VA did what they could to help her. But sometimes, even with these programs that we have, the individual may still require, intake. Or need some actually 24-hour care. And who knew a 32-year-old woman would need that type of care? But, eventually, I'm glad the law enforcement intervened. They found out her daughter was malnourished.
Oh, my God.
Malnourished, had been homeless for over 3 to 6 months. Even though she had support here, she had a lot of support here in San Diego, but she refused it, because she always thought someone was going on. And I'm glad the court system saw what was going on and said, hey, she needs some help. So they turned her over to me, and now I'm going to have her daughter, and society is going to help us. And it's not a problem with that.
So you're going to be foster parents?
I'm going to temporarily foster her. And then after that, she'll be turned over to her grandmother. Okay. Her grandmother's going to take care of her. But she definitely needed help. She needed some intake support. But like you said we have all these programs. But it's not just about the programs. It's about the individual. How do we get the individual in? And that's the thing about trying to persuade. I've done it before. I've gotten her in to seek help. But unfortunately, you can only seek for so long. They get her out. Okay, she's good to go when she's not. I had a young woman. She had been sexually assaulted. This was a few years ago. I was helping her with one of the veteran stand-downs here. And we sat there and talked. She was about 28, 29 years old. She was one of the translators in Iraq. So I knew who she was. And I was saying, why are you homeless? She said, I can't stay because, men see me as a object. I'm like, men don't see you that. But the military, which institutionalized her, saying men are superior to you. And she felt that, my sergeant, my gunny sergeant, they're superior to me, so I have to listen to these men. Well, sometimes these men are not right. Okay. Yeah. So in order to help her, it wasn't me. I actually pointed her in the right direction to other women veterans. And these veterans were able to find her shelter, get an apartment, even sponsor her mother and her sister from Iraq. And I'm so happy that she's doing better. But for some reason, when I see homeless veterans, I try to figure out what was the background, how things happen. But for some reason, I'm finding more women are being homeless veterans. We're talking about 22, 23-year-old women that are on the streets. How can we do this?
I can't even believe there's no like real transitional program. Like I feel like legally, and maybe this is something that needs to be pitched to the legislature, there needs to be some type of transitional period where veterans are taken care of, taught vocational skills of some sort, so that they can know what they're doing. If they're institutionalized in this, system of being in the military, they should come out and have some type of institution that helps them transition out.
That would be such a blessing if they could do that. Just sit these service members in a room, maybe for a month, go over some mock situations or scenarios, and let them know that it's not like that. You don't have to stand to attention when your boss comes in a room. You don't have to figure out that that person is going to attack you. It's not like that. If you're in the military, you're taught camaraderie. I have to rely on you. You're going to save my life. I was on a ship. I was on a submarine. I have to rely on that individual. If that individual is not there, we have an issue. Okay. Transitioning in society, it's not the same way. You can relax your guard. That's why sometimes people are combative and be like, oh, this guy is a crazy vet. No, it's what triggers them. We're not taught, we should just calm down, sit down and talk. We're not taught that. We're taught this person is going to save your life. This person you will listen to, and you will be able to see the next day.
Sounds like it's like as if somebody's coming from another planet to Earth and they have to learn how to live here.
Mm-hmm. This reminds me of a podcast I listened to, which talks about just the differences between kind of innately our human nature. We love the fight or flight. That's what we're made for. Like back when we were cavemen, that's why we have anxiety. Anxiety is good for us because it tells us when there's a threat and we run. And I think all of those innate characteristics are great when you're in the military. But then it talked about how like in modern society, all of those characteristics and traits that we had, innately and that were great to us as cavemen are now not only useless, but they're counterintuitive. Yes. Our anxiety that we think someone's going to attack us or whatever causes depression.
Don't worry. In a couple of million years, it'll pass.
We'll be back.
Oh, wow.
No, but it is like, I feel like in the military, you're taught to kind of have those caveman instincts. And then you come out and those instincts are no longer useful to you. In fact, you can't like explode at a supervisor because you have anxiety and all of these things.
Oh, wow. I remember when I first got out, and they gave me a gun. Oh my goodness. Oh, that was just great. But I was a security guard. But, I'm thinking I'm top cop. I think I can jump off this. And I found out, this gun is actually detrimental to my health. I wanted to be around that gun all the time. And I didn't know that. Yeah. But I was like, I'm safe when I have a gun next to me. No, I'm not. I'm actually safe when I don't have the gun next to me. And then when I finally said, I need to do something else. So I ended up, getting an orange apron, and I was the best Home Depot employee there was. And you know what? I felt so much at ease. I was around people who actually talked to me. No one yelled at me. I was like, this is how society really works. And I'm like, this is great. I'm like, people are real people out here. No one's looking over your shoulder. No one's going to say, if you don't do this, the thing's going to fall down on you. It was great, but it took about a year after I got out of the military to understand that, this is a calm life. You still have to be aggressive at times, but you don't have to figure that you're fight or flight all the time.
Well, what really stood out to me in that story that you just said is like how self-aware you were. when you realize that I really need to be around this gun and what should I do differently because this is not good for me. I think that is what separates you from a lot of people who wouldn't understand that about themselves and would continue doing what brought them dopamine, which was being around the gun because that's what their brain thinks is good for them.
Oh, wow.
So that training, because again, not everyone is self-aware.
Right.
And especially, again, with the mental health issues, there's pride that goes into it. Part of being in the military is you're taught to have pride. You cannot be an active service person and not be confident and proud. You just can't.
Right.
So then they come out and they still have that pride. They don't want to be like, oh, I'm triggered by this, or I really feel like I need to be around this gun. No one wants to say that about themselves. So to the extent they don't, that's where things go downhill, and that's when they can't hold a job. They end up homeless, all of these things. Okay, so now we're going to play what's called red flag, green flag, where we are going to give you specific scenarios, and you tell us if it's a red flag or a green flag and why. You ready?
I am ready.
Veteran is denied a lease because of his misdemeanor conviction years ago.
That's a red flag. Everyone makes mistakes. Just get the opportunity. Give them the opportunity.
Mila, can they get sued for that? I think they can, right?
For employment purposes, being a veteran is a protected class in
Right.
California. So under the Fair Employment and Housing Act. So with that said, employer hesitant to hire a veteran citing adjustment concerns. Red flag or green flag?
It depends on the job, because if you're going to be going into a burning house, you want to have somebody that's stable.
That's true.
If I want to go rescue that child, I want to make sure that person behind me is going to be there for me if that building falls or something goes on.
So I will say that morally it is absolutely a green flag, but legally it is definitely a red flag because employers are not allowed to discriminate against employees due to veteran status.
Policy-wise, though, I agree with him and his green flag.
I agree.
It makes, not just morally, but for safety of the society.
Well, I think unless the employer has a reason to believe that the veteran is incapable of performing the job for one reason or another, they can't discriminate on them just because they're a veteran.
I would go with both, red, green.
That's a tough one.
Because you could always ask for evaluation of the veteran. You can still give the veteran a position and just be evaluated. How about that?
Yeah, that's legal. If the position is one that requires, some specific skill set, they can certainly require an evaluation.
Okay.
For sure. But it has to be neutral and it has to be applied to everyone equally, not just veterans.
Vet refuses to go to VA for help because they think it's more stressful than just doing it on their own.
Red flag. Swallow your pride. Yeah. Asking for help. I didn't know how to ask for help. I thought if I was asking for help, it would actually hurt me.
How?
Due to the fact that it could go on my record.
Oh.
And if I go on my record and I apply for a position, especially with, say, for instance, with a secret clearance, they're gonna see that.
Isn't it confidential? I mean, medical records.
It is not confidential.
Nothing is confidential. I want to say one thing. Asking for help is not weak. Not asking for help when you need help is weak. I think a lot of people in this society fail to recognize that a lot of mental health issues are far greater than us. These are not things that we can handle on our own. So to the person who thinks it's weak to ask for help, think again because you're being weak by not asking for it.
I think a lot of people believe they're resilient based on their past experiences, and they think they can handle themselves because of their past experiences. And it's not until we're at the point where it's unbearable, then they kind of give in and try something if it's worth it for them.
Yeah. Use that see when people get help when they're in trouble.
A local court partners with a nonprofit to host legal aid days at shelters. Green flag.
We do that at North County Stand Down.
We need more of those.
Yeah, if somebody comes by, she is outstanding. Comes by and make sure she takes care of all the misdemeanor and anything major. She point everyone into the right direction.
We need more judges on that.
Yes. I was so happy to have a judge. That was the first time we had a judge there at the facility.
A red flag or a green flag? A woman coming out of military is having a hard time making decisions on her own without a male partner.
That's a red flag. She should be able to do everything on her own. With veterans organizations that could help her, and even family members or friends or even other service members. I feel confident that a woman can do the same thing as a man.
Could you tell us the difference of unique needs that women have once they transition out of military versus man?
What I noticed is women actually can transition easier in society than men. Actually, they would be able to sit down and cope and actually figure out that, hey, you know what? I don't have to fight or flight. I can actually sit down, well dressed, and do my job. Rather, a man, maybe a man or gunny sergeant, master sergeant, commander, they're in charge of 200-300 people, and now they come out, they're the peon, they're the smallest person on the planet, and they can't deal with that. But I do see a lot more women transitioning out better than men.
So it's a loss of identity depending on what their position was
Right.
for men. But for women, you said they're adjusting better. However, you also mentioned there are more women who are homeless. So how do those two go together?
Okay, how that usually goes together, single moms. They're sitting there, they get out, they're in a relationship, and all of a sudden the male figure in the family say, you know what, we had all this steady income, now we don't. So why should I be here? And the father, or the dad, or the husband is gone. And next you know, I'm looking like, wow, you're a single mom. I had one woman, she was actually one of my neighbors. She was studying to be a doctor. I remember her husband is a nurse, and 4 kids. And all of a sudden she was like, you know what? I need to stop this military thing. I'm done. And her husband was like, no, you're not. I need to finish, nursing school. I need to do this. I ended up seeing her at the stand down, homeless.
Hi.
And I'm like, hold on, did you have 4 kids? She said, all my kids are gone. They're with their dad. He just kicked me out. He's like, I don't need you. I'm like, how can a mom be kicked out of a house with 4 kids? She said, well, he did it. And I was like, wow. And she ended up getting incarcerated.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how
Sounds
often
extreme.
does divorce happen in military situations?
I would say, just like first responders, about 50 to maybe 70%.
Wow.
Adultery, I would say 80 to 100%. People can say, no, there's no adultery. Let me tell you, it's adultery. You put a person out there in the middle of the ocean for 6 months, something's going to happen. You put a person out in the middle of the desert for 6 months, something's going to happen. People say it doesn't. I've seen it all. There's so many people get divorced because of commitment to the military, not to the family. I think that's one of the biggest ones. They want to stay with the military. That's their first love, not their family. And next you know, you find them divorced.
I think, just from my understanding of how the military works, a lot of times people come back different. If they're deployed, they just come back different people.
Depends what they saw, probably, and where they served.
I have a couple of cases because I was counseling. I was a counselor in the service staff. An individual came back and his baby kept crying, and he took the baby's life because the baby wouldn't stop crying, and he just had something. About 2 years ago, a person I know very close. We served together helping other veterans, and he took his own life, and he had 5 kids.
Oh
And
my.
he came back and he just couldn't take it.
The counseling couldn't help. So
Oh.
deep depression.
It was depression. He couldn't make the next rank, so he was going to be forced retirement. And having 5 kids and trying to cope with life is not that easy. We always talk about the after the fact, that you could have, should have, would have. And at that time, I didn't know. I just know that he was up for the promotion. Things was going to happen. Things were looking great, and all of a sudden, something triggered. He was having some issues with the family, with the spouse, and then at work, and he just walked in his office and just took his life. And that happens. And we always talk about after. What could we have done different? But we try to do things different. I was with a young lady when overseas in Guam. She tried to kill herself 3 times. We even did a suicide watch. I'm in the barracks with all these women, and I'm watching this one sailor saying, hey, I'm not going to let you kill yourself. I'm going to do everything I can so she would not kill herself. 3 times. And she wasn't even, I don't think she was even 22 years old.
Psychological trauma could be aggravated, and things can get worse when they're in the military, because now they're really facing different types of pressures and different personalities, and So things could get out of control, not because of potentially being overseas in a war and seeing things, but other triggers.
Right. There's no difference from a person being a firefighter, a first responder. They could have an underlying condition, and then now it's triggered. We really don't know because we all have a breaking point, and we just don't know what that breaking point is.
I just want to emphasize that the identity crisis that happens when you have to switch careers is just immense. It is just immense. And I see it all the time in the employment context when people have to leave not jobs, but careers that they've built for many years and have to figure out who they are outside of those careers. And it is just debilitating. And I've had people who were not in the military and didn't see combat who have tried to commit suicide because they didn't understand who they were. And it's easy for us, I think, to sit here from, like the third party perspective and think about like what they could have done differently or, that there was a chance to have a better life for them. Of course there was. But when they're in that mindset, they don't understand outside of it. There's this, I was listening to this thing where like you look at, close up and you see brown and you're like, oh my gosh, the world is brown. And then you realize it's a tree and it's just the bark of the tree. And then you take a step back and it's like you see the leaves. And then you take another step back. You're like, oh, there's a whole world. But when you're like in that place where you only see the bark, everything looks black. I don't think they can conceptualize a way out without medical assistance.
Most of the time with veterans, other veterans can help veterans, and other veterans in that field can help veterans. Sometimes you want to get people help, but they don't know how to get help. But then you get another person, say, you know what, I was a Marine just like you. Hey, what MOS were you at? Oh, you know what, I remember doing something like that. Now it triggers, oh, you know what, this guy is just like me, this girl is just like me. Now I think I can get help.
So it's like having a coach or a mentor that may be helpful to them after they transition.
Right.
Do they get paired up with anyone?
No. They do have after the fact, sometimes after they get incarcerated, after they get intake, they get the help. But unfortunately, usually when you get help is after something traumatic happens.
Now, do you have any positive success stories of people that sought help and sought your advocacy and turned their lives around?
Oh, I do have quite a few success stories. North County Veteran Stand Down that we have once a year, usually at Green Oaks Ranch over in Vista, Master Chief Matt Foster and his family. Last year, we made sure we placed every woman, every child in a facility. A lot of these people turned around and found jobs within that month, and then out of their temporary housing and into the facility. That's one of the stories, and there's so many of those stories that I can talk about. People transitioning, all they needed was that hand up, and once we gave the hand up, it was outstanding.
And will you connect me with whoever runs that organization? Because maybe I can do trainings on like how to apply to jobs. I'm actually doing one right now for domestic violence victims, but I feel like I could use the same presentation and veterans could benefit from it just as well. How to apply for jobs, what your rights are when you are in the workplace, how to request accommodations if you have PTSD, all of those things. So maybe I could set that up if you want to connect me with your person. I would love to do that.
Oh, yeah. He would love to hear from you. And I would love you to come to our organization in Escondido and just talk. Because we're taught to get past it. Get past that pain. Get past what's happening in your life. So you carry that on in society. Like, you know what? I must be a failure. So this is where I'm at now. But they're not failures. And that's why we have to sit there and talk to them. And unfortunately, you may talk to them at the wrong time when they're incarcerated or when they're about to get a divorce, when we could intervene. Like, because there's so many veterans out here that would give a hand. Like me, I do it for free. I would help with transitioning a service member in their family. I have no problem with that. So even with not having the budget, I'm sure there's more enough people who are out there who give a hand to those service members.
So we have a listener question here for you. This is from one of our listeners. They said, my brother is a vet who's been struggling with housing and minor legal issues. He says no one gets it. What can I do as a family member when he is too proud to accept help?
Oh, I like that question. That happens. It's not getting him help. It's getting your brother and you help. Okay. When he sees it, he said, my brother has an issue. No. We have an issue because it's a family. And what he can do is say, brother, let's go together and find help. Now, your brother is not saying, oh, I need help. No, we need help. Brother, I need this. And then find him treatment. Go to treatment together. One of the things that people find out is when you're in a society with other people like-minded like yourself, you tend to relax and throw that guard down. What he's saying is, my brother needs help. My brother needs, no. We need help. And when he tells his brother this, now they go over the treatment and he sits with his brother getting treatment.
And how beautiful is that like the support that someone must feel immediately when you say we versus you, because I'm sure it's isolating coming back and seeing the same people maybe you saw before, but you're different. It's isolating, and I'm sure it's lonely. And even that small transition of he versus we, I'm sure makes a huge difference. That's great advice.
We can't help everybody, but we can try. And as long as you give an effort, that's all you can do. Because what's going to happen, you're going to exhaust your resources, you're going to exhaust yourself. Now you're going to be seeking help. Okay. I wish I knew about this before I got into divorce, because I needed help, but I didn't know that.
Thank you so much for coming. This was so informative, and I think it will be helpful for a lot of people who don't know where to turn coming out or having family members come out of the military. So thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was I learned a lot today that I didn't know. I didn't actually think this episode could be as interesting as it ended up being, because there was so much I didn't know about how it works in the military, how people that are in the military really rely on others, and that mentality is different in the real world. I never thought of it like that. And that was a very interesting perspective, I think, for me as a lawyer when we deal with people who come from military who are clients, to understand that, to kind of be able to treat them somewhat different because of an understanding where they're coming from and their expectations.
With more empathy.
Definitely. Thank you all both for letting me come on and express how much I really care about my veterans and about people here just in San Diego, about the transitioning back into civilian life.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for helping them.
Dr. Porter, thank you so much for your leadership, your service, and your voice for veterans who need more than just thank you. They need justice.
And to our audience, if this episode opened your eyes, then please share it.
This is your reminder that healing, like justice, is a team effort.
Her voice is so therapeutic. It's law, it's life, it's a glamorous grind. We'll see you next week.